Saloni Doshi, the founding director of Space 118, which is a Bombay-based arts foundation running studios and residencies. We at Space 118 are happy to bring to you today the talk series where artists and curators can take us through the trajectory of their practices of making art and exhibitions. As they trace these arts, we hope we can all find some answers on how to make these practices respond to and evolve with the changing contours of tomorrow. Most importantly, it should answer the age-old query of how do we make. As our first speaker, it's an absolute honor to have with us today one of India's most prolific and innovative sculptors, Tallur, who lives between India and South Korea. Tallur is an artist with a strong background in museology, deep knowledge of materials, conservation techniques, and is also known for making works that allude to the very eventual decay or transformation despite our best attempts to preserve them. His works remind us that what we value is always in physical and psychological flux, now more so than ever. By mixing artifacts, bronze, coins, concrete, kitsch, machines, oil, silver, stone, and wood, Tallur layers and builds monumental pieces that use artifice and obstruction to critique the power structures and strategies of institutional display. I welcome him to this talk series starting today. I would also like to introduce Phalguni Guliani, who is our Space 118 Contemporaries art writer in residence for 1920. She was nominated by the jury last year, consisting of Nancy Adajania and Anupa Mehta. She's joining us from New Delhi today, and I hand it over to you, Phalguni.
Thank you, Saloni, for that quick round of introductions. And what an absolute honor to be speaking to Tallur, who is going to be taking us through his exhibition, Interference Fringe, which closed in January of this year in Hamilton, New Jersey. It was curated by their director, Gary Schneider, and showed nearly 30 of Tallur's sculptures made over the past 13 years of his long practice, thus making it his largest survey exhibition in the United States of America so far. It's interesting that Tallur chose this show as the anchor for today's presentation because of how relevant even its title is to the historic times that we are living in. For Tallur, the notion that people are capable of simultaneously carrying forward and censoring the memories of their past is what leads to a subjective retelling that we call history. As everyone will see in the talk today, Tallur is as much a magician, as a scientist, as he is a sculptor. And he looks at these waves of collective memory and collective amnesia as a physicist would, you know, where two waves come together and form an interference. And it's at this interference, at this fringe, where Tallur's works lie as they celebrate competing narratives, contradictory meanings. And without further ado, I'll just let him jump straight into the presentation, which I know viewers are so looking forward to.
Yes, thank you very much. And I'll just, switch on my presentation first. My presentation is visible?
No, we're still seeing the invite. Can you share your screen, please, Tallur?
Can you see now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so thank you very much. And I'm very excited. It's more than almost 100 plus viewers are here. So it's very exciting for me to show my works. And thank you for your time, and I'm very happy. And I would also like to thank Saloni and Phalguni for this amazing opportunity to show my work. And I right away I kind of start my presentation. And so first I'll ask a question. So why some of the works are so powerful? It's very interesting. The work may come from history, or work may come from an illustration, or a cartoon, or a craft. So whatever it may be, but work looks so powerful. Why? So always, I wonder that, why that thing happens. So I slowly, I kind of realized that it's the presence of artist. If artist is there, or if artist is experienced so much, then he can present, or it naturally reflects in his work. So that's the kind of point which I'm always excited. So as I said, it's from the history or wherever it's from. But there are some works where you feel artists are absent. That's very strange, and I'm very uncomfortable whenever I see a work, and if I don't see an artist over there, or if I don't see his something, then you feel very uncomfortable. So I have a plan. So what I did, whenever I see that kind of a sculpture, I use a machine to remake those sculptures. So this is enlightenment machine. Enlightenment machine to recreate a sculpture. So I allow people to do it. So what I did was, wherever you go in the world, so you get to see the souvenirs, right? So the souvenirs they are great illustrations of those sculptures, but then you can't see an artist over there. So you need something else over there. So I ask people to remake the sculptures through my machine. Basically, the machine enlightens them. So this machine actually inspired from a knife sharpening machine. Like my grandfather had a knife. It was like almost 13, 14 inches long, and within that knife still we have, and it become a 4 inches or 5 inches. So it means when you are grinding the knife it sharpens, but it not only sharpens, but the knife disappears, right? So this machine also does that you start working on the machine, and it recreates the whole sculpture. By the way, I exhibited in many countries, like in USA's and Germany, or in Beijing also. I exhibited this as a beta version. You know what is beta version, right? So whenever we test something, some machine, we gave it to a limited people. And I know that artist communities when we compare to the world, we hardly a 1.1%. So I checked with them by showing this machine, and then I kind of I improvised, and it is now a beta 3 version, right? So you may ask, have you shown this in India? Yes, I did show in India. When I showed in India, I used this sculpture. So this sculpture, I have an interesting story. So when I first visited Aligarh, I saw almost everywhere there is a public sculpture making foundries I have seen. So they use a pot metal. pot metal is almost comes from a scrap. Like what they do is in a water tap or even a burtan or electric left out copper wires and all these things. They put them together and then boil. So from there they cast the sculpture. So even the material itself is very shallow, like in the sense there's a different compositions of different piece of scrap goes there and becomes very absurd. So I'm very uncomfortable with the sculpture, partly because the numbers are too many and then there is no artist over there. And plus it's a very, very bad material. So what I did, I took the sculpture to my enlightenment machine and I grinded them off. So I until it looks interesting for me, I kind of stopped. And then I exhibited this works. I call this work Eraser Pro. So Eraser Pro is a program. So if there is a data in your computer, if you delete, you think it has been deleted, right? But not really. So if FBI or CBI or some investigation agencies, if they come, they can completely retrieve your data. But if you use Eraser Pro, it is the program where you can completely delete or eradicate your data. So that's why people use Eraser Pro program to safeguard their private informations. So now grinding is also a kind of a Trishanku condition. Maybe most of them know who is Trishanku. Trishanku is living in a special heaven, right? So it's actually Durvasa Muni wanted to send him a live to heaven, but then from the heaven, Indra asked him not to come and he pushed him down. So that's why Durvasa Muni got angry and he created a heaven in between. It's neither earth, in Hindi we say na Ghat ka na Samshan ka, that kind of a thing. So I wanted to create some kind of a Trishanku iconography. So, Trishanku iconography is kind of very, it's an in-between. Like, if you are, standing up from your chair, it's neither you are standing up nor you are sitting. It's somewhere in between. So those in-betweens, very difficult to become a symbol or iconography or something. So grinding is also an action of in-between. So when somebody is holding a cross angle grinder and then, kind of grinding self is very amazing. I mean, it becomes a symbol, is my kind of a challenge. I mean, kind of a challenge to work on that. So I call this 0 plus 0 equal to 0 minus 0. And when the viewer pass this sculpture, it will start, reacting. And then both the angle grinders will start running. So these are the two images. One I exhibited in, Baudaji Art Museum in Mumbai, and the other one is Ground for Sculptures in USA, Hamilton. So the next idea is polishing. Polishing is almost like a grinding something, right? So I kind of found this machine in Daegu. Daegu, there is an industrial fair. Every year it happens. And I went there and I saw this machine specially used in polishing mobile phones. Like, when you make a mobile phones, excess comes out from the casting. So to remove those excess, they use this machine to kind of grind them. So suddenly, I mean, it's a huge machine. So suddenly I was surprised. Oh, if I put a coin, what happens? Oh, it grinds away, right? So I thought, it polishes. So I asked him, is there any possibility to make this machine in a round shape so that, it almost looks like a coin? Then yes, then that's how I come up with this machine to polish a coin. By the way, it's a home video.
Okay.
So after grinding the coin, it almost becomes like this. So, usually you polish it to shine, but then, naturally we are greedy. So we polish more, and then we end up, getting this coin like this. It becomes, the denomination disappears, so it becomes an, useless. And so I make a certificate and give it to people with this coin. It's a grinded coin. By the way, I cage this machines. When I showed them in Beijing, I created this cage between two rooms. Like, people have to kind of pass room number 1 to room number 2 if they want to kind of see this work or see other works. So it creates some kind of a confusion to people whether to walk in or not. It's almost like a money also, you don't know whether to invest here or not, whether it will raise or not. So it's good or not. I mean, does that create a bad image or not? So all this confusion, I thought, it's a between the bars, it's almost, 13 centimeters, so that, we can walk inside. So, different places, I created this cage in a different, way and different structures. So this is in total. So now we talked about grinding. So after the grinding, what happens? So certainly the dust remains, right? But in Vedic discourses, it's said that, God is everywhere, even in the dust particles also. So I thought dust is very important. So I had to think more about the dust. So in Bahudajil Art Museum in Mumbai, I got a chance to exhibit with the museum objects. It's an amazing chance, amazing program from the museum to respond to the museum objects. So when I first visited, I saw this interesting vitrine, and I changed or converted that vitrine as a vacuum cleaner. Like, you imagine a stomach of the vacuum cleaner is almost like a museum, vitrine stomach, right? So it's a, what I did was I collected dust from all over the museum, and then I put them inside, because they are historical dust, they are important dust. So then I put them, inside the vitrine, and then people can watch. And it's basically a vacuum cleaner. So I call this Tattvam Asi. So art is everywhere, even in the particle of dust also. So this I exhibited in Grounds for Sculpture in Hamilton. And when you are riding bicycle in a rainy season, what happens? So you get, if there is no mud guard in your bicycle, you get a kind of strip in your back, a muddy strip. Sometimes the mud also reaches your head also. So all I wanted is, I wanted to give this muddy mark to the museum. So that was the idea. And then Another idea is like, I wanted to design an accident. I wanted to design a whole accident. So to do that, we had to do a lot of things. Like, we created a bin block pit, and then we kind of sealed it with the plastic, and so that the water doesn't go out, or it's a kind of, it's inside the museum. We have a kind of we kind of really recreated that structure. The videos are fine?
Yeah.
So we all know that different sizes of the wheel will throw different quantities of mud, right? So similarly, different textures will throw a mud in a different way. This is, I think I found out later. So when I was designing an accident, another accident happened, and then I kind of improvised that accident. So that's very important for my work. So you can see left side, it's almost like a different qualities of brush, like a number 6, number 7, so like that, different textures will create a different marks, or a different way it throws out a mud and the water. So let's say if we take it as a watercolor, it's almost thin, one side I added more water, so that it throws mud on the wall as a thin water, like a watercolor. The other side, it's almost a oil color. It's very thick. So I don't have a very kind of a present image. The show went on for almost a year. So it went, the whole thing accumulated a lot, and then it become, kind of, even the plant started growing in the mud. It's because of 1 year. So I heard from the curator. So I also, this is amazing, people when they come to see this work, they spend a lot of time. Why? Because it's an accident. Since it is an accident, it's an expected accident. So people try to watch for a longer period. So which is amazing. So some point I want to do this in India, and a kind of permanent sculpture. I'm hoping for that. And I'll right away show this, and people keep a volume of your computer a little up. This video, the sound is very important for me, and it is, I shoot in Junagadh Museum, and we'll talk about this after looking at the video. The video is in a loop, and I hope we were all able to hear the voice and the proper video.
I could hear it, but we got some comments in the chat saying people couldn't. So for those of you who missed it, please go to space118.com. We will be putting up a recording of this after the talk, and we hope you can catch it then. But we'll let Tallur continue for now.
So as I said, this is a carpet from Gujarat, Junagadh, from the Junagadh Museum. The left side, you can see an Junagadh Central Jail, a picture of 1890s. Okay, so actually this carpet is made by the jail inmates in Junagadh, and then you can also see on the carpet it's written in Gujarati script saying that Junagadh Central Jail. And then it was gifted to the local Nawab, and the Nawab used this carpet in the Darbar Hall. So you can see left side picture in the Darbar Hall where you can see the carpet. And the day I visited the Junagadh Museum, the museum staff, they were cleaning this carpet. So I just got surprised. The kind of the dust it is throwing out was unbelievable. The design was fine, but then once the dust started coming out, I just thought, this is what I have to record, or I have to kind of shoot. So immediately I kind of decided and gone ahead to shoot with the 4K camera. So 4K camera is very expensive. So I had to make that decision within a week or something. So it's important partly because it's a historical dust. The museum curators worked on that, or the officials or the government officials worked on that, or the Nawab from Junagadh worked on that. Even this carpet is made by the jail inmates of the freedom fighters, right? So that's why it's very, very important to record those dust. So that's the reason I gone ahead and I come up with the I really have to thank Junagadh Museum to allowing me to kind of do this project. So now, as I said, it's a museum object. I have a habit of working with the museum object. I always love to do that. So this object is actually from Philadelphia Museum of Art, from Philadelphia. So I really stuck with this work. It's partly because it's very, very difficult to diagnose this work. It is originally a broken part of a huge sculpture of a Kali. And, imagine there is two people. One is eating a feet of another guy. And then he may be masturbating or pulling his hair. I don't know. It's very, very, very kind of, as I said, very difficult to diagnose. So this may be, we always used to kind of, whenever telephone comes, everything we doodle, right? So something similarly, I feel, whenever, traditional sculptors, they have a rules and regulation to make the sculpture, right? So somewhere in the corner, they want to express their own feeling or their own personal life or something. So that is the reason I think that's how this sculpture has come up. Otherwise, very, very difficult to kind of connect all the kind of links and all those things. That is the one reason I thought, I want to work on this sculpture. The other thing is, of course, you are having a conversation with the 10th century sculptor. Isn't that amazing to have a conversation with the guy from 10th century? So the second question comes, how to do this? I mean, I know why I have to do this. So most of, when we discuss about museum sculptures or museum objects, we only write about them or we converse about them. But writing and conversing is a different medium. But is there any possibility creating another sculpture to talk about this sculpture? Is there any possibility? That was my question. So that's why I decided to make a sculpture. And the immediate next question is, what medium? So I come up with this medium. So this is a bone, the animal bone. So animal bone is, in a sugar factory to bleach sugar, they use this. And also, as a fertilizer or something. Or even if you eat a chicken in a restaurant, do you know all those bones, where it goes? It goes to a chicken, bone meal factory, and they powder the bone and they kind of, feed this back to the chicken. So it's like almost like this guy eating another guy's feet, right? So that's the reason I used a bone. And by the way, yesterday when I was talking to one of my friend, Mr. Dilip Ranari, he said to me, even chicken eats stone. I ever heard that? Like chicken eats stone, pebbles or small pieces. So I heard that it is for digestion. Like a chicken, the hen or a rooster, they swallow, they don't have a tooth. They swallow the stone inside, and the stone is helping to grind inside the stomach. So, I mean, I just remembered this. It's an interesting point. Anyway, so I created this sculpture with the bone. So in the process, an interesting accident happened. So I used different kinds of glue. So one of the glue started reacting to the calcium in the bone. So suddenly it started oozing. So whatever you are seeing in the surface, it's actually oozed, character. So I gone ahead and used it. So many a time, things I improvise, it happens on the spot when I use a new material and I get really excited about it. And then I kind of, go ahead with the work. So I must say I was very lucky because, Dariel Mason is the curator of, the Philadelphia Museum. She lent the original object to show in my show. Okay. And it was juxtaposed with my artwork with the 10th century artist. It's a real conversation. So I was so thrilled the day it arrived in the museum. So the other point I want to say is, like, below that image, you can see 5 frames.
Yeah.
So when museum collected this object, from that day to kind of today, they almost changed 5 times its text.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt that even the text also evolves. It's not that, whatever we say through text, it's not the final thing. So that also kind of like a work you see, and there is an accident, there is a, you start knowing more about it. As it goes further, the text ideas changes. So I exhibited that also in the with the work. So this is a kind of final view of that work. It's almost 20 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So now I want to talk about a museum style. So what you are seeing on the screen is dermisted beetles. In the left side, it's a skeleton of an elephant, right? So how museum makes this skeleton? So it's amazing. So they make a huge pit, and then they put the elephant inside, the dead elephant, of course, and then they put the whole colony inside of the dermisted beetles. The dermisted beetles are meat-eating beetles. So the last week I was, looking at the video of some Chicago Science Museum. They are still doing it. They are like one of the staff. They were saying this beetles are museum staff. The bones of the the artifacts or bones of the animals displayed in the museum. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to kind of clean that clean way.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea inspired me to do this work. So when I visited the craftsman, he had a sculpture, which is actually, in our region, whenever the power of the goddesses goes off, then they'll throw it to the seaside, or they'll put it in the river or something. So from there, this craftsman got this sculpture. For him, it was a reference or something. And then, he used to sell these sculptures. So when I saw this sculpture, the feet of this sculpture had some termite attack. Mm-hmm. Then I said, that was the eureka moment. Oh, this is exactly what I want to do. So I brought this sculpture to my studio, and I took it to the backyard, where you can leave this sculpture for further termite attack. Okay, mm-hmm. So I allowed this for a further termite attack, and then I used a termite repellent to control the termite eating. Like wherever you add termites, termite repellents, it will not eat.
Okay.
And then the remaining areas it start eating. So it's like playing around. Every day, 2 days I used to go and check, and then oh yeah, enough yet. And then also I used to collect mud. A termite ate. The termites also it's excrete the termite mud. So I used this mud as an armature in the sense when the bone becomes very fragile. Sorry, not the bone. The wood becomes very fragile when it eats. So you add a little bit a termite mud, then that works as an armature to the sculpture itself. I showed an etching image in the right side. It's partly because it works like a etching.
Yeah.
Graphic, you kind of put coating, and then you draw, and then you dip inside the acid, so it starts etching only that much part. Here I use a termite repellent. That's the reason I thought it's an activity, early activity of my art school days. Anyway, so I also learned first time embossing with the local craftsmen. and it's a silver embossing. So usually, if goddesses, to restore in the villages, they cover it with either gold or silver, some kind of a precious material. So I decided, okay, let me only protect the stomach. So that was the idea. So Alzheimer, I titled it Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is all about, the memory losing, cultural memory losing, I can say, right? Yeah. So it's a kind of Alzheimer. So when I visited a stone company, I saw a stone piece in Rajasthan, which almost looks like a wood. So I was like very surprised. It's very interesting, a stone looking like wood. Isn't that amazing? So I bought that wood, and then I created a sculpture which is actually come from the wood. Like if you take any Indian traditional sculptures, so most of the traditional, let's say, cave sculptures or a cave architecture, they have a reference from the wooden architecture to, or wooden sculpture to make the stone sculpture, right? So in case of maybe stone, in case of wood, they may be using a bronze sculptures or a bronze figures. So that was the kind of idea. There is a lot of loss and gain in translation. So what I did was I took a wooden sculpture which got a termite attack, and I scanned the whole sculpture, and then I translated this sculpture in stone, which looks like a wood, right? But I used a 3D milling technology. So I deliberately kind of left all the milling, tool marks. It's partly because, I want to show the whole process, and people can read everything that, the stone, the translations, and then, so it's a kind of milled history. History is constantly milled according to the present need. We kind of redesign whole thing according to our present need. So that was the kind of idea I was thinking around. So building my temple starts with a video of 2001 when I was studying in Leeds Metropolitan University. So it's a 4-minute video.
University has bought 400 meters of PVC coated fabrics in orange, red, black, and white colors. It is not an easy task to cut, stitch, and glue this material. To make an 18 feet height inflatable structure. Using Karma glue and stitching work well as a joining agent. I have to use an air-maintained system to keep this temple upright all the time. Everything depends on my half HP Honda blower.
So you all know about the temple, and I don't want to much talk about the temple. Instead, I want to talk about the inflatables. So I did inflatables in 2001, that was the temple, and 2006 and 2007. I treated it very differently. So it's very important for me. So I'll show the 2006 work. It's called Panic Room. So Panic Room is like when you enter the gallery, you see the structure, and you walk in, and there is a button when you switched on, then it's like slowly inflates, and then it inflates, and actually they get trapped inside. So this idea actually come from a newspaper cutting. So after the tsunami in 2005, after looking at this image, oh my God, so I want to do something out of this. So that's how the work started. And then I come up with this work. So it gives me, in terms of experience, like if you go to any hotels where, you get a room where you don't have a windows or something, only door, you walk in, you get some kind of a psychological, uneasy or some kind of a panicky kind of a sense. So that's always I think about. So the Panic Room has that when you walk in, and when it's a fun, when you walk in, you feel excited, but you have to wait until it deflates. So in 2007, again, I did another work called, Untitled Bed. This is for me, again, it's almost like a painting. So I worked on the surface of it with the silicone. So why I used silicone? So in 2007, in South Korea, I partly live in South Korea, where I have a studio also. And in 2007, they had an oil spill. So it's unbelievable. Like, it's a kind of, when I visited over there, everywhere oil in the seaside. And it gives a picture of an apocalypse. So when I was back home, so I was feeling like in the windows, you can see silicones. They always look very wet. So I was thinking, why it's wet? It may be a year back you have used the silicone, but then it's a material quality. And it's also a byproduct of petroleum, jelly. So I thought, oh my God, this is a right medium to show oil spill. It's a petrol oil spill, right? So I decided to work with that medium, and that's how I come up with this work. And then, the left side, you can see a tool which is specially used in delivering a baby. It's called forceps tools. If the baby doesn't come out, they put this, the doctor put this on the head of the baby and then pulls it out. So it's a kind of childhood memory. I had a friend whose father was a dermatologist, and we used to, hidingly see some of the slides in his home, kind of dermatology, skin diseases, plus, all this anatomies and all from the book. So I saw this tool over there, and then when I came to know this is used for this reason, it was like so much of fear. Oh my God! So this is used in, somewhere the tool created a fear, and even it came in 2007's birth. So I think it's a last slide. So maybe we can switch to discussion from here. So thank you for the patience. And maybe, this is the right time. It's almost an hour, right?
Yeah. We can now start our Q&A, and I would ask the audience to put questions in the chat if they have any for Tallur. But just thank you so much, Tallur. What a journey you've sketched out for us. I mean, right from your university days, from when you were making your temple to now, when you are still fundamentally questioning the same histories, the same acts of erasure, and the same vulnerabilities. And it's a really great breadth of your practice that we've got a chance to see today. And just the so many materials that you work with. I mean, of course, there's metal and industrial scaffolding, but there's also the granular, there's dust and bones. And one of your shows was in fact even called Smoke Out. And there is in all of this a kind of a fascination with purity. And to start off, I'm just curious, does this translate also into your making process? Are you a very busy maker? Do you work on many projects? Do you work on only one at a time? Tell us what a day is like in the studio where all of this magic happens.
Okay, so I don't know where to start. I think, my hand and heart thinks first, and then it goes to brain. So this is the kind of, circle all the time. First, I have to feel. So if you're feeling, then only I go for it. Then I start with the hand. So it's hand and thinking. Why? Because whatever you experienced, does that kind of really translates? It's very important. So everyone gets an experience, but translating that story or the experience is very important through the medium. So the hand comes over there. Then I think slowly you think about it. Then it becomes an work. So for example, like I talked about the video. So the decision I made in an hour, it's partly because you strongly feel that there is something, there is some human interest, there is some strong feeling for that. So until that video, I never did a video. So I like to do it, but then what is extra I can show in there? That was my question. So I for a long time I didn't never use the video as a medium. So immediately I decided, okay, we need a slow motion, and also I don't want it to kind of create a movie or something. It was very still. So the museum staff, I asked them to kind of clean. Basically, when I met the curator, I said, okay, can you wait for a month? And he agreed. And then we gone ahead with the film crew in Mumbai to come over there. And all we did was we didn't touch. It's a museum object, and we just shoot with the still camera. It's almost like a whole happening happens in front of the camera. So some works it's like immediately happens. Some work I take a help from different people. Some work I work in a different levels and different ways. Why? Because it's very important for me. I should not get into a kind of muscle memory. Mm. So if you get into a muscle memory, then you maybe start repeating. You maybe start otherwise it's I can say in schools, in science classes, you do an experiment again. Partly, but you feel that, you are doing it, doing yourself. Oh my God, it's great. But to understand the concepts and ideas, you experiment those things in your school with the methods of experiments, right? But basically, it's not yours. But then, same time, you are doing it to get a sense. So this is very important. Like otherwise, you will start copying your own work.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting lots of questions here from people who are saying, what is your favorite material? What is the most challenging material you have used? And I want to take it back to something you said in 2012 in your show at Bhavda Jila. You said that when you take a material or an object and you put it in a museum and it gets museumized, yeah. It enters a fifth dimension. And I'm sure most of our audiences here know that you're actually a museologist by training, who then turned a sculptor. So, I mean, if you can tell us a bit about the way you work with these materials and what for you is this fifth dimension when it enters a museum,
Okay. Maybe I can start explaining this. This was actually Hopkinson, he said once. You take a balloon and you have two dots on the balloon, dot A and dot B. Let's say dot A is talks about the past and dot B talks about the future. So when you are blowing, what happens? Dot A and dot B kind of expands, right? So it's almost like a museum object. When you are seeing a museum object, suddenly the past and future kind of expands. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So So I think, immediately in that position, it gets an fifth dimension. You are not just seeing a museum object, you are seeing past and future together in the present.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the one thing. And then when you think, about the material, of course, whenever, like let's say bone, a bone is a body part, right? Always we have an association, we view our own body very close with the close-up and close views. So whenever there are material having those qualities, like, one of my favorite material is a lacquer. So if you think about lacquer, the lacquer is the best mix in any material. Why? Because it's an excrete of an insect. Excrete of an insect. So this insect actually eats leaves, and then in its stomach it digests or mixes properly, and then it comes out, and then those excretes are used as a lacquer. Even in the West, people wanted to recreate lacquer with the chemically. It is that good. Like, lacquer is used almost everywhere. Like if you are using a lipstick has a lacquer. And if you are using a medicine is covered with the lacquer coating. Or any furnitures, like they coat with the Sinlac, right? So when you think about a material, the material itself has a lot of history, a lot of things to explore. But because, I love that idea of material talking its own or itself. There are a couple of work I'm strongly kind of thinking about, in that direction.
Yeah, it's so great that you've chosen lacquer as the material to answer this question because of its close link with the insects and the environment. We have a question here from Tasneem Mehta, who's asking, with the world changing, we are standing, at the face of kind of a climate emergency. The environment is changing, the way we interact with each other. In a changing world like that, Tasneem's question is, do you think your work will go more into a video direction? She says that video work at present is more process oriented. So do you see that as something that you will be thinking more towards after experimenting with film as a medium? Do you see your process changing?
No, I think whenever you get an experience or whenever you feel you want to say this, then you have to choose your medium. Medium should not rule you. Instead, it's the other way around. Like, when I think about the dust, I can't do that in the sculpture. It's only possible in film medium. But if you take a film medium, there are several works or several ideas, very strongly came in that medium. You have to kind of see an edge over there. So first thing for me is always the what do you want to say? What exactly you are feeling? And through what material you can say. What material is strong. Sometimes what happens, as I said, I'm thinking with my hands.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Why? Because when you are using a material, you also feel that, okay, this will communicate. Why? Because the heart gets into a hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other part of the exercise, which for me, little later. Why? Because, anyway, in this earth, whatever you use, that will lead to amazing ideas. Because, you are doing it and you are there. So that's why in the beginning I said, presence of the artist is very, very much important. unless if you don't feel, the work will start feeling very dry. I strongly believe that whatever you feel, I mean, the artist feels, the viewer also feels the same thing. That's what I believe in.
Yeah. I want to, this relationship you talk about between what the artist feels and what the viewer feels. As let's say, let's look at the work which is which is at the start of your presentation, the Enlightenment Machine. When you allow a viewer to enter that work, they make the work also in a way, and you relinquish the control of what the final object, the sculpture which they grind, what that will look like. So, and yet in all of your practice, there's not really so much of a giving up of control, in the sense that there are very carefully orchestrated illusions, like there is a stone that looks like wood, there is these illusions which are very carefully orchestrated. So it doesn't seem to me as if you're somebody who's very fond of relinquishing control. And yet that's what you seem to do in the Enlightenment Machine. So as a maker, what is your relationship to control? And how much of that are you willing to give to the viewer or somebody who makes your work?
So this is interesting. Like, let's say whenever, whatever we think, it's very misty. Like it's not, there's no clarity, right? So my exercise is that in the first step, you go extreme clarity. Try your best to clarify as much as possible, with the understanding of it is going to go haywire. You know what I mean? So it's like that it's very mystical, or it's very Maya, but then your exercise is towards to get the clarity. Otherwise, you will not reach anywhere. That's the first thing. And then I also believe strongly in accident and chance. And most of the cases, like, I was doing this exercise for self-analyzing works for my last webinar. So the first thing I always talked about, the deliberation. So how much you are deliberate, and how much you are really kind of to the point. And then naturally the chance and accident happens. So in the chance and accident, what you are picking up and how you are improvising. So that's why it is all about a process, right? And then of course we have to think about how we are completed. This is a kind of structure to self-analyze one's work. I think it's a deliberation, and the chance and the accident, and the improvisation at the end, how we complete the work. So these are the things where if we kind of ask this ourselves, well, because we can't lie to ourselves. So So does that answer the question?
Yes, I'm also interested. I mean, all of this is with the ultimate aim of reaching some sort of a clarity, even if it is your introspection on, your role as an artist. And if we look at that word clarity, I find your use of the grinding tool very interesting, because the grinding tool is something, we associate it with polishing a surface, with making it more clear. But say in a work like 0 + 0 = 0 - 0, or in a work like Eraser Pro, you use the act of grinding to remove clarity, to erase things, So if we look at this contradiction where you're using a tool which is used for making something clear, but you're using that to erase it, how does that contradiction work for you? Do you think in the process of your making, it's important to first destroy something in order to create something new out of it?
in Kannada, we have a say, Taleyalli hula bidodu. So it means leaving some worm in one's head, right? So it's all about, clarity in not what you are making, clarity in what you are communicating to the people, or what point you are giving it to them. So now in a brush, if I make a vague mark, what I'm saying is I'm making a vague mark. If I'm in the work, I said I'm designing an accident in my work where the mud is thrown. So over there, constantly the accident happening, and people are waiting for the accident to happen. Well, because people know that there is an accident going to happen, so I'm watching. So that's a clarity. But in front of your eyes, the accident is happening. So that's the reason many a time, in our Indian condition, we know accidents are happening, but still we manage. It's just because of, we know that we are going to fail anyway. Okay, I mean, we don't make a decision, or we don't, clarify things, or these are all because of, that's the way we, we kind of developed, or that's the way we learned things. I mean, is that gives answer? I mean,
Yeah. I have another question here. Somebody is asking, Shampa Shah asks that, I'm wondering, how do you enter your work? Where do you locate yourself? Could you explain in terms of any one of your work? Where I think she's talking about the presence of an artist as being essential to you.
I mean, the one part of the, the area is, it's all left to critics and historians, and, to read and work. And of course, I get the feedback from them. But otherwise, like, this is a life. We have a short life. So, all I do is, I do an exercise to understand things. And then little bit I share here and there. So that's what I have a clarity. Why? Because, there are so many philosophies, so many ideas in this world. And it's very, very difficult to kind of, get into and make it's yours. With whatever, whoever says, all I have to do is I have to keep my eyes and ears open, so that, whatever things come in. So that's why, I don't kind of try what mainstream says, or I don't, try, or for that matter, I don't copy my own work. There are instances I had to, because, that's another area which pushes me to do that, to be in the stream.
Yeah. We actually, our most recent question, somebody has asked, which I think is a nice point to bring in here. Priya Patodia says, do you struggle to decide when you think the work is complete? Do you know when to stop, or do you have an afterthought? And that's also something I'm interested in knowing, that as a maker, how do you find, or how do your works find you again after a long gap,
I think sometimes I'm very uncomfortable when I see something very complete. Let's say a coin. When we think about a coin, it's a complete thing, right? It's a government says this is what it is, and then there's a completeness in the coin itself. But I try to kind of grind them off to completeness. So I mean, this is kind of it becomes verbally interesting to kind of go back and forth. But these are all happens in my head. That okay, it's a complete, or okay, it's all about the consciousness. It's, for example, now we are in a webinar and some 100+ people are weaving, or you feel that okay, am I doing okay, or am I doing wrong, or am I said something uncertain, or the clarity was enough? And all these questions comes when you are making and work, like right now what I'm experiencing. So the movement, always I have a that's why I'm always uncomfortable with the verbal language. Why? Because verbal language, always I feel that it demands a statement. Once you make a statement, you are inside the frame, or you are inside you are inside, so that you can't do this. So I feel I wanted to kind of it's a short life, another 30 years, so hardly one lives. So in a short life, all you have to do is kind of get experience with different things. And why we have to limit ourselves?
Yeah, that ties in really beautifully with Samir Tavde's question. He asks that, because you're talking about experiences, he says, every work of yours is inspired from your past experiences and has a story along with it. My question is, have you thought of a fictional story and then making a sculpture?
Not really. Like, maybe I had to try that also. So sometime I also think if it is a symbol, or if it is an icon, so it's very, very difficult to push further that icon. Something like a verbal idea or a verbal thought. They are already like a strongly framed, or strongly like it is there. I mean, I can say I have seen a film of an I'm just trying to remember that film. It's a film of Czechoslovakian writer. He's a very popular Czech writer, Milan Kundera.
Okay.
So his, when you are reading, his text or his novel, it's amazing. Why? Because it gives you different kind of a thoughts and imagination and everything. But when I saw a film of that, I was totally disappointed. Why? Because it's become real and it's kind of narrow. It narrows down. So what I mean is each medium or each idea has its own medium. It demands its own medium. So if I try to make an novel as a film, then somewhere if that quality, if that character is not there, then it's gone. I mean, the novel becomes much more powerful than the film. Or if there is a film, I want to kind of rewrite and do something. It's basically we are talking about art. You are making art based on art. So somewhere that problem comes out, I guess.
Yeah, because we're talking of art based on art, and I'm always interested in knowing what makers think of other makers. So what is your relationship with the works of other artists? How do you read them? Like, for example, there have been parallels drawn between the work that you showed us just now, the vitrines at Bhaudaji Lad, and say Jeff Koons showing vacuum cleaners at MoMA, yeah, or Man Ray's photographs with Duchamp of dust. So what do you look at these artists as sources of inspiration? What are your sources of inspiration? When you look at them, I think one of our questions from Neni Vora was also, does size and scale matter to you when you are looking at other works or your own works? How does it work for you in terms of inspiration as a maker?
See, for me, very simple. The work guides you what to do next. In terms of size, in terms of medium, in terms of, but sometimes matters gallery also. They have to fund your work, right? but the important thing is, the work. the whatever idea. So then how kind of, mold them to certain way or certain route, that's always left to, it's almost like a, when you are cooking, is that a good example? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can say this is the better, in fact, I constantly talk to a couple of my friends. I have a friend in Mumbai called Mr. Dilip Ranade. And I have a friend in Manipal who is Mr. KP Rao. Or I have a couple of friends who are some kind of makers and thinkers, and I can say scientists. So when you are having a conversation with them, I get a lot of feedback. And for I mean, I mean, Saloni is ready. I kind of end with this idea that I almost observe things from the green room. Like in drama, whenever it happens, you are watching the drama from the green room. So when you are in the green room, you know what is inside, what is, it's like in the webinar, you know inside and stories and outside stories. Then it is more exciting and interesting for me. So I do my artwork something of that way, that watching whole thing from the green room.
Okay, thank you so much, Tallur, for giving us a little peek into your green room and the wonderful theater of your works. I'll let Saloni come in now for her vote of thanks.
Thank you, Phalguni. You're absolutely right. What a generous gift Tallur has given us. Thank you, Tallur, for taking this time and putting this wonderful talk together for our viewers. I'm sure everyone has had something to take back from this conversation. I've got personally a lot of, messages saying thank you for organizing this. And we've had over 250 registrations for this talk, so that speaks something. On behalf of everyone who tuned in, on behalf of everyone who will see this talk later on our website, and I know many will, and on behalf of the team at Space 118, I want to thank you wholeheartedly. It's been a pleasure launching this series with you and starting with your talk. We hope our viewers will see us next week on Sunday again at 6 p.m. though, for a walkthrough, more like a talk through, with Amanda Stroka, who is the curator for the Philadelphia Museum of Art. And she will be taking us through the current show that is still going on. It opened actually a little bit before COVID, called Fault Lines, featuring works of Zarina Hashmi, Nasreen Mohammadi, Tanya Goel, Sheila Gowda, Prabhavati Mayapal, and Priya Ravish Mehra. So join us next Sunday at 6 p.m. and we will be sending out the invite soon, but do visit our website, space118.com, and our social media handles on Instagram and Facebook to know more about what we are doing and coming up with next. So look forward to having with you guys next Sunday. Thank you.
Next week, we're at 6 p.m. Saloni.
Yeah, 6 p.m.
Thank you, Saloni. Thank you, Saloni. Thank you.
Thank you, Tallur.
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.